Today we're exploring one of the most important personal accounts of the 20th century, the Diary of Anne Frank. We're going to look at her life before, her time in hiding, and of course the legacy of her incredible writing.
And to really understand Anne's story, you have to start with how quickly her world was turned upside down. She was born in Frankfurt, Germany in 1929.
Right.
But by the early 30s, the political situation there was becoming so dangerous for Jewish families that her parents, Otto and Edith, they just knew they had to get out.
So in 1934, when Anne was just 4 years old, they packed up the whole family, including her older sister Margot, and moved to Amsterdam. They were essentially refugees just looking for a safe place.
And for a few years, it really felt like one. Anne settled in so fast. She learned Dutch, went to a Montessori school. People described her as just really lively and talkative, a bright kid who loved to read and write.
And her father, Otto, he started a business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he started a company selling pectin, which is a gelling agent for making jam, and also some spices. For a while, it was just a normal life. They felt like they'd put a safe distance between themselves and what was happening back in Germany.
But that safe distance just completely evaporated in May 1940.
The German army invaded the Netherlands, and just like that, the Franks were trapped. All that security they had built was just, well, it was shattered almost overnight.
And it was replaced by this whole system of new rules, of decrees that were just suffocating.
Exactly. The occupation moved fast to put in these really extreme measures to, segregate and control Jewish citizens. These weren't subtle changes at all. They were immediate and they were harsh.
Just think about what that feels like. You're suddenly forced to wear a yellow star on your clothes anytime you go outside.
It marks you instantly.
Yeah, it marks you, and it limits where you can go, who you can even talk to. And then you're banned from public life. No parks, no cinemas, no public transport.
And it went even further. They couldn't go to their normal schools anymore. They were forced into a separate Jewish lyceum, which just isolated them even more from their friends.
And what about businesses like Otto's?
Those were taken away. Jewish-owned businesses were systematically Aryanized, which is a terrible term that just means they were confiscated and given to non-Jewish citizens.
So it's not just about controlling where you go. It's about systematically taking away your hope, your safety, your livelihood.
And then came the fear. On top of everything else, people started disappearing. Friends, neighbors. You'd hear they got a notice to report to a so-called work camp.
And everyone knew what that really meant.
They knew. They knew it was the first step towards something far, far worse.
Okay, so this brings us right to June 1942. It's Anne's 13th birthday, and she gets a gift, a small red and white checkered notebook.
Just a simple diary, the kind of thing any teenager would get. She named it Kitty, and she started writing to it like it was her best friend.
And at first, the entries are, what you'd expect.
Totally. It's all about school, her marks, friends, crushes on boys. It's this perfect little snapshot of a normal teenage life, right on the edge of a cliff.
And then, just a month later, in July, that life ends.
A formal notice arrives at their apartment. It's for Margot, Anne's older sister. She's being ordered to report to a labor camp.
That was the signal.
That was the emergency signal. There was no more waiting. The plan that they had been preparing had to be activated right then, right now.
So instead of Margot reporting, the whole family just goes into hiding.
Immediately. And they had to be so careful. They couldn't pack suitcases. That would look way too suspicious. So they just put on layers and layers of clothes.
As much as they could wear.
Exactly. And then they staged their apartment to look like they'd fled in a hurry. They left dishes out, the door unlocked. They wanted everyone to think they'd run for Switzerland. It was all a distraction to buy them time.
And they walked through the rain to Otto's office building, to the Secret Annex.
Right. And this hiding place, you have to understand, it wasn't some cabin in the woods. It was right in the middle of Amsterdam, in the back part of the office building at Prinsengracht 263.
Hidden behind a movable bookcase. I mean, just imagine that. Your life, your survival depends on a piece of furniture.
It's unbelievable. And it was so cramped. First, the 4 Franks, and then they were joined by the Van Pels family, a mother, father, and their son, Peter.
And later dentist, Fritz Pfeffer.
That's right. So you have 8 people all living in this tiny, tiny space.
And for 2 years, their entire existence was governed by one rule above all others.
Silence. Absolute silence, especially during the day. Because the warehouse below them was still operating. There were workers down there, just a few feet away, who had no idea they were there.
So no flushing the toilet during work hours.
No running water at all. No loud footsteps. You couldn't even, cough too loudly. Anne wrote about the absolute crushing boredom of just having to sit still and listen, knowing one wrong sound could get them all killed.
How did they manage the stress? I mean, 8 people in a space that small.
It was incredibly difficult. Anne's diary at first was really just a way to vent. It was therapy. She wrote about all her frustrations, especially with her mother, and the total lack of privacy.
But then it became something more, didn't it?
It did. She heard a broadcast on the radio, secretly from the Dutch government in exile. They said that after the war, they wanted to collect letters and diaries to document what people went through.
So she started to see her diary as a historical document.
Exactly. She started editing it. She went back over her old entries, improving the language, changing names, preparing it for publication. She was becoming the writer she dreamed of being right there in hiding.
Even while the physical conditions were just getting worse and worse.
Oh, they were awful. The lack of sunlight, no fresh air. Everyone was getting sick and irritable.
And food?
The food was terrible. Sometimes all they had were rotten vegetables. They were hungry all the time. But even then, she would write about these small moments of hope.
Like her friendship with Peter Van Pels.
Yes. They would sneak up to the attic together and just talk for hours. They'd look out at the sky through a crack and dream about what their lives would be like when they were finally free.
But they were never really free from the fear. The sound of sirens at night, or a car stopping outside during the day.
Every noise was a threat. Their only connection to the outside world, their lifeline, was this small group of helpers.
Otto Frank's employees, people like Miep Gies, Piet Vaskel, and a few others.
And we cannot overstate the risk they took. What they were doing was a crime punishable by death.
If they were caught, they would have been arrested and likely executed.
Without a doubt. And they didn't just bring food. They brought books and news from the outside. They had to use illegal ration cards, which was incredibly dangerous, just to get enough supplies for 8 people. They were the bridge to the world.
For 2 whole years, this was their life. This silent, terrifying existence. And Anne is growing up, she's writing, she's reflecting on humanity. She writes that famous line that in spite of everything, she still believes that people are truly good at heart.
That's the tension that makes her writing so powerful. The horror she sees versus the hope she holds on to inside. But then, on August 4th, 1944, that silence was finally broken.
Their worst fear came true. The authorities, acting on an anonymous tip, raided the building.
They found the bookcase, they found the annex, and they arrested all 8 people inside, plus 2 of the helpers.
In the middle of all that chaos, as the police are tearing the place apart looking for valuables, Anne's diary gets left behind.
It's just scattered all over the floor. Her notebooks, the loose pages she'd been editing.
And it's Miep Gies who goes back up there after they're gone.
Yes, she finds it all and gathers it up. She keeps it safe, hoping, truly believing, that she would be able to give it back to Anne after the war.
But that, of course, never happened.
No. They were all sent first to a transit camp in the Netherlands and then shipped to concentration camps. Anne and Margot ended up in Bergen-Belsen.
Where the conditions were just unimaginable.
Starvation, disease, the cold, typhus was everywhere. Margot died first, and then Anne, heartbroken and sick herself, died just a few days later. It was probably February or March of 1945. She was 15.
Of the 8 people from the Secret Annex, only 1 survived.
Only Otto Frank. He was liberated, and after a long journey, he finally made it back to Amsterdam.
And that's when Miep Gies gave him the diary.
She handed him this whole stack of his daughter's private writings, her fears, her dreams, her thoughts.
It must have been just devastating to read.
Unimaginably painful. But he also saw how extraordinary her writing was, and he remembered how much she had wanted to be a writer, so he decided to fulfill her dream for her.
He had it published in 1947.
Yes, under its original Dutch title, which translates to The Secret Annex.
And the impact was just immediate. The book has been translated into, dozens of languages now?
Yeah.
Millions of people have read it. And that building, Prinsengracht 263, is now the Anne Frank House Museum.
Her diary is more than just a record of what happened. It's a testament to the power of a human spirit that refuses to be crushed. It shows that even in the darkest of times, one person's voice, her belief that people are still good at heart, can become a message for the entire world.
Good luck with your studies.